This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm your host, Sarah Blair, here to welcome you back to minute 96 of our Fight the Future coverage. This minute begins at 1 hour 35 minutes, and this is when Mulder finds Scully's necklace in the abandoned cryopod and begins his search for Scully. And it ends at 1 hour and 35 minutes and 59 seconds with Mulder discovering Scully in this pod, and we don't know how he's going to get her out. Another cliffhanger. Surprise. Spoiler alert. Marlene, welcome back.
Hey, Sarah. Good to be back.
Excellent to have you. This is kind of an intense minute, even though we don't have any dialogue. One thing that I noted when I was watching this minute, it does not feel like a whole minute passes.
No, I agree.
In this minute, it moves very quickly, even though we don't have a lot going on, but it just feels so intense that the minute doesn't drag on at all. You don't feel like you're watching nothing happen. There's a lot going on, even though there's no dialogue.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is the search part, but it seems like each minute sort of it's building towards more action and the sort of the climax of the whole situation. But I don't think any of these minutes for me drag, because some of the atmospheric stuff that doesn't have even as much action is just sort of a pleasure to watch, or to sort of see Mulder looking and whatnot. But it's definitely it takes a full minute of looking around versus a minute of Mulder actually finding her cross and then looking and doing stuff. So it's building up at this point, so it does go by really quickly.
Yes. One question I do have for you, Marlene. Mm-hmm. When Mulder finds the abandoned pod, did you get the impression he has to go around the corner, kind of, right? He has to go on another hallway, another corridor to find Scully. He has to actually search for her. I'm wondering why, if they were in such a rush that they would abandon the pod where it was, why wouldn't they bring her to the correct placement and just put the pod down, put her in the thing, and it would be right there? Is that just more suspense?
I'm sure it is from a movie standpoint. It looked like that pod, the pod they transported her in, was in a different looking section. I don't know. It's so hard to tell because they give us glimpses of this whole structure, right? So it kind of keeps it suspenseful as to what the whole thing might look like. But it looked to me like there was a more open area or a different area. And then he goes across a row or so of pods before he starts looking for her. And it didn't look like... It looked like there were a lot of rows after that, but not a lot of rows before that. So maybe that was just the closest transport area. I don't know.
I wonder if they moved, because maybe they did put her in the thing and it was empty. And then, because when he's up in one of our previous minutes, when he's up and he's looking over, you can see them clinking along and they're moving. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're definitely moving on that conveyor belt system.
So I wonder if it just shifted. Maybe that's
interesting. I hadn't thought about that either.
Because it's not shifting while he's trying to get her out.
None of them. I don't think any of them are moving. But it does look like they are being moved around the whole structure. He's trying to get her out and she keeps moving one place over. That would
have been much more intense, I think.
I don't know. I feel like that might have gotten a little comical.
Too much.
It's a little bit. It might have become a farce at that point, and we want to maintain the intensity. If he's constantly, that's when it turns into an I Love Lucy sketch. Is if the body keeps moving over
with the chocolates, just shoving her in the mouth.
That's exactly it. So what I was thinking.
Do you think? I wonder if Chris Carter was well, if we just take her out and put her in the one that's right next to the pod, and he finds her immediately. That's too obvious. As much as he likes his magic binoculars and his magic everything, he'd be like, oh, well, that's just where he draws the line.
I do think it is like having to not drag out because it doesn't drag, but having to have like a little bit of a search going on. But I also think there's a different section where like that pod is deposited, and I like your interpretation in the last minute that they left it hastily to get her going, you know, in the system and get her, you know, infected or whatever. But I do think it was a different area than all the areas that had the pod set up. And so he kind of goes, you know, has to go across and starts looking, and conveniently picks a correct area. But it was an area close to where he found her transport pod, so I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
What does the production book have to say?
Well, it talks about how, because he's looking at faces, and they're all more, like, recently entombed people, I guess. And he looks at several people before he finds Scully. You know, and, like, the first person he sees he's, like, suspended in the green liquid. He sees his face, and he has that translucent tube going into his mouth. So everybody is kind of in that condition, including Scully, once he sees her. But Chris Carter talks about, he, like, comes around the corner from where he's found her transport pod, I guess. And then you see like a fresh set of the cryopods, and he says that compared to the ones that were what he calls upstairs, so where Mulder was initially, that appeared to be encrusted in brown and they're sort of old. He said that we start to see what look like modern day human beings. So the idea was, you know, the whole thing again about this having gone on for a very, very long time. And
oh, kitty.
Sorry. Okay. So the idea is this having gone on for like a really, really long time. So the ones that maybe at the top level are the ones that have been in there for quite a while at a more advanced stage, I guess, or from a different era. I don't know. But then the ones that we're looking at now are like people that have recently been encased. And so he talks about the liquid being, it's not completely iced over. It's a little bit fresh looking. So he's looking at all of these and he finds what he's been hoping for. And then also said like hoping not to find is that Scully is entrapped in one of these things. It's like he called it like a giant icicle. And then the way that they did that was a mix. He says it's a mix of Jillian in a water tank and also a Jillian polyurethane cast inside of a pod. So it gives the illusion that she's been encased in there. So they did that by creating a head cast on Gillian Anderson and then a body cast of her, basically like a body double, I guess, and kind of put that together inside the pod. And I assume that's what he did for all of them, but especially for her, since we have to see her close up and then have like the next scene of, or the next bit of it of Mulder, you know, seeing her. And doesn't he, like, he first hits his palm on the ice, which I don't know I don't know. I guess it's just a reaction when he sees her to be like, "Oh, come on, Scully, get out of there," or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
Hitting his palm.
Well, it's just like, oh, that part just like gets me every time because he's just like he's got to get to her, and he just like it's
that's his first instinct, and he's not hitting it hard. He's just kind of like hitting it with his palm.
Yes.
Which we know is not effective, but, like, I get it. It's almost like a child trying to get something.
It's like my daughter on the shower door when I'm trying to take a shower and she, like, comes up and she's like, please let me
come on out, Scully.
Yes.
So then I like that reaction, that he's not immediately, like, practical, but it's just this, like, sort of gut level reaction. Yeah. And then he starts to bang his flashlight against the ice. So right at her face level.
Because he's got to get her to breathe. You know, she's trapped in this. That's
right.
You know.
But she's in the ice.
Yeah.
So, but he's banging his flashlight, so it's getting to be more
intense.
of a trying to rescue her thing. But he has just found her. So
I'm surprised he doesn't say Scully.
I'm kind of glad that we dispensed with the melodrama, but he could have said Scully. But that's what the bang, like the hitting of the palm on the thing reminds me of him, like being like Scully, you know.
Yes, yeah, but he doesn't have to. I think they made the right choice there. Okay, so I do have a question about something that you said, where Chris Carter had said that the idea was that these people have been collected over all the millennia between 35,000 BC. So for 35,000 years plus another 2,000. these people have been collected in this place. So I'm curious, what would that be like in, say, medieval times? And is this why the ancient Egyptians made the pyramids? Because they were being abducted and they wanted to, like this is fascinating to me. I want to explore this idea just a little bit. Like the ancient Mayan civilizations and all of their, alien stories from centuries and centuries ago. Over time, is it because these people were being collected?
Are you talking about like that they are doing that as well as a collection thing, or as protection against?
Either one. I just just following this theory that Chris Carter has set up in his world. Like, if this is something that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, how does it relate over time? And can you imagine Cowboy Joe in the middle of the Wild West being abducted by aliens and taken to this ship, and King Arthur or whatever, this knight in shining armor being abducted from medieval times into this alien ship, it's a fascinating thought to explore, I think.
I think it is too. It's interesting though, because we've talking about as Mulder is seeing all of the the layers of this inside this ship, and how the expanse of it. And then the history of it, because you see the people that have been in there, they're supposedly Neanderthals or whatever. But then, if you look beyond that, it's from what you're saying, it's not just that ship or these people or this history going back to the Neanderthals, but what if these other things were also a part of that kind of abduction motif? What if it differs from culture to culture, but it's sort of replicated, in some system each time? So the pyramids or whatever could be part of that. I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. That's why, that's another thing that I love about this part of the movie, is that I think it really holds all of those mythological motifs, deeply mythological, not necessarily just X-Files mythology, but the really mythological things. So you can kind of think about them, you can enjoy the story as it's going along and the suspense and Mulder finding Scully and so forth. But there also are these other questions that you can think of just if you let the visuals sink in, and then think about back to the beginning of the movie with the Neanderthals running in the snow. It's is this going on not just as one big project here, but maybe it's everywhere?
Yes. All those missing Anasazi tribes people, maybe they're on that ship too. And then they all get taken away.
Their own ship somewhere. It might not be the only ship.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's very true. Because how would they get somebody the Neanderthals? I guess I can understand, but being in Antarctica and it's all frozen. But you've got the Pangea theory, in which Earth was not always separate continents, but one big landmass, which would make sense too. It all ties in together, Marlene. This is fascinating.
I know. But then it's if you think about that and all the different histories of it, that's fascinating. But then if you get back to the little story, it's how among all of these near endless corridors, all of this stuff and pods, did Mulder happen to find Scully? So you've got the little story in the midst of all of these different bigger possibilities.
Scope and grandeur, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So before he finds her, when he finds her clothing and finds her cross, in this minute, it seems a substantial number of kind of close-up seconds within the minute are devoted to Mulder, finding Scully's cross and looking at it, and then you see him clutching it in his palm and taking it with him. But we don't, spoiler alert for the rest of the movie, we don't see any kind of scene of him returning the cross to her. So I was thinking if that would be something, maybe in lieu of the debriefing scene by the reflecting pool later or something like that, if you had the cross handoff or something. I don't know that that's significant, but it seems all of these various roads of him going into the underground, into the spaceship, led to him finding her, but there's also that pause on that moment when he finds her cross to get that for her. So
yeah,
I don't know. I thought that might have been...
That's a good catch. I hadn't ever considered that before, but I think it's significant because, you've got when he gives it back to her in one breath,
Exactly.
And it's he's constantly saving her and constantly giving her back this necklace, and it's kind of I mean, the necklace is so much more than just the necklace at this point.
And it always comes back to her, and then like the significance of it being the cross too, and the whole like saving motif, I guess, if you will. I think is really interesting.
And his faith that he's gonna find her no matter what.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. I think that's definitely a missed opportunity, but I can definitely fanfic that business.
True. That's true.
Totally gonna write that now. Thank you, Marlene, for that idea.
You're welcome. I do like the way that he finds that though, and I think that that's, I don't know. I like that they took time with that moment in what is otherwise a pretty hectic scene. Yes, I agree. It's like the cross is almost a beacon to Scully, and that he's gonna find her, and it's really beautiful. That's what
I think
too. It's kind of like a symbol of hope.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that just about does it for us in this minute, right?
Yep. We leave Mulder with him banging the flashlight against the ice. He has found Scully at last.
Oh, he's got Scully, but he's got to get her out. And you're going to be back hosting next minute. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Next minute Cortlan.
With Cortlan. We will see how Mulder gets Scully out of the cryopod.
I can't wait. To find out. This is another cliffhanger. Oh my goodness, just full of cliffhangers here towards the climax of Fight the Future, right?
Almost like on the minute, too. It's really impressive. Yeah.
It worked out really nicely, didn't it?
Yes.
Well, Marlene, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me. And
yeah, you're welcome. It's been great.
Yeah, it's always fun talking with you. So you and Cortlan will be back next time, but in the meantime, where can we find you online?
I am on Twitter at Marlene MHS. Believe that is the my moniker on there. And then on Facebook, just as Marlene Stemme, and we have good discussions going in the basement group, which is where I usually look if I'm on Facebook. So either of those locations.
Excellent. And you can always find me on Twitter at Sarah L. Blair. I'm on Instagram at author.sarah.blair. And in the meantime, everyone, we hope you have enjoyed these minutes with Marlene and myself. Marlene, you'll be back tomorrow. And until then, trust no one.
Elsewhere on We Made This. Life's milestones.
Whenever it was that there was that census where there was the campaign to try and get everybody to say that their religion was Jedi.
Oh, I remember it well. I think I did put Jedi, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I was adamant that I really wanted to put that down because it aligns a lot more with my beliefs than anything else. You know, Star Wars has always been there for me. But yeah, that's when my mum was saying, no, we had you christened, and I ended up losing that one. And then when I lived on my own for a later census, I just, by that point, just put non-religious.
I'm in a band podcast.
Flaming Lips did a gig and they were all in bubbles. So the whole band, you know them big bubbles you get that you can play football in? The whole band were in them and all the people in the crowd were in one of them.
I'd go to the gig with a pin and fucking ruin everyone's evening.
You need a big pin.
Then you have to get out of your bubble first with your pin. They're going to see you.
You have a bubble with a pin on it. Or what, like you're like a sea urchin just going around causing chaos.
Hey, rolling around.
Could you have a fag enough?
I suppose you could get your own bubble, innit?
Frame to frame.
So Sean, have you got anything further you wanted to say on the two films that we've looked at this week?
I think they're both overlooked gems, and anyone who hasn't seen them needs to go and check them out pronto. Enough said.
I agree with you. We could have also called the theme for this week Nerdy White Guy Tries to Find Love.
But are you having a go at me there?
No, I'm just saying...
Because I bore my heart when talking about the way back. I thought you were having a pop at me there.
No, absolutely not. I'm just saying that that's what we could have called the theme for this week.
I mean, we could have done. It could have been like, you know, podcaster recalls painful memory of riding bike in front of girl.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.